Hey, we're live. We're live and we already have a comment. My God. Let me find myself here on the internet. Look at that. There's me. Hey folks, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Grassroots Motorsports Live presented by CRC Industries. Coming to you on a special night, Tuesday this week. It's Tuesday, October 10th, 2017. We're here in lovely Ormond Beach, Florida. We're going to be, well, we're live right now, but we're going to be live actually doing the show in just a couple of minutes. Here from the shop, we got a 2017 Honda Civic Si. We're going to take a close look at, give you some driving impressions, give you a little bit of a tech analysis, show you up one side and down the other on Honda's latest sporty coupe here. If you're joining us online tonight, I see some folks tuning in here. Do me a favor, will you? I'm going to do it on my phone as well. I want you to pull out your device and go to our webpage or go to down below the video and click this little button that says share right there. And I'm going to do it on my page. Look at that. One hand and a couple of buttons, and I have shared it on my personal social media page. If you did the same thing, I would, oh look, and it showed up on here that I shared it. How amazing. What a time we live in, folks. Welcome to another edition of Grassroots Motorsports Live presented by CRC Industries. I'm JG Pasterjack. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about this Honda Civic Si 2017 brand. It's a new era for the Civic Si. This is a turbocharged 1.5 liter. We're used to having VTEC naturally aspirated engines in Honda's sporty cars. It's a brand new day, folks. 1.5 liter turbocharged engine under the hood of this Civic Si. We're going to be taking a real close look at it here soon. Before we do that, though, let me tell you about the folks that make this show possible. Talking about folks right down here. Yeah, look at that. Like CRC Industries. You can check them out at crcindustries.com. Every week before the show, we actually grab a couple of CRC products, specifically Power Loop, and we go through all of our hinges and stuff, our Steadicam rig that Chris is wearing right now. We make sure it's quiet and running smoothly, and we grab some of their display cleaner. We clean all of our lenses, we clean all of our displays, and I think what this tells me is CRC is more than just brake clean. Everybody's familiar with brake clean. Everybody's got a can of CRC brake clean in their shop somewhere, but they have a very wide and very varied product lineup. Over 15,000 products in the CRC lineup. You can check them out at crcindustries.com or retailers near you. If you're reaching for an automotive chemical, if you're reaching for lube, if you're reaching for carb cleaner or fuel injection cleaner or brake clean, and you're reaching for CRC stuff, you're getting not only a fantastic product, but you're getting a product from a company that supports what we love to do, and that is amateur and professional motorsports at every level. They are folks that give right back to this world. So by helping them out, you're helping us out, you're helping yourself out a little bit, no biggie. Also, check out autobooks-aerobooks.com, our favorite bookstore in the entire world, located right there in Burbank, California. Tens of thousands of good old-fashioned books on paper, tech manuals and history books, photography books, cars, boats, planes, motorcycles, DVDs, all kinds of stuff there. Autobooks-aerobooks.com. Great bookstore, great website where you can search and order any of their books. Also, great calendar where they are literally a hub of the entire Southern California automotive scene. If you're out in the LA area and you're looking for car stuff to do, check out autobooks-aerobooks.com. They have a calendar of everything going on in Southern California that you could possibly do with sports cars and classic cars and all that kind of stuff. Let me put these down and say hi to a few folks. Oh my God, I see actually everybody in this room has now joined us, which is fun. And Mike and Brad and Jason and all of our friends out there are coming on board as well. We're going to be diving into this Honda Civic Si momentarily. well, it's not the last chance, but here's your last chance before we start the actual show. Throw us a like, throw us a share. If you're watching us on YouTube, welcome. If you have questions at any time during these proceedings, feel free to post them in the chat on YouTube or in the chat on Facebook, and we will get to them as quick as we can. All right, so let us check out the Honda Civic Si here. So let's talk a little bit about generations of the Civic Si. We're all familiar, or hopefully the older among us are familiar with when the Si became a thing, which was basically 1986 was the first Civic Si. There was a CRX Si before that in 85. First Civic Si was 86. It didn't necessarily usher in the hot hatch era, but it was Honda's shot across the bow of the Volkswagen GTI and the Ami GLH and everybody else who was making hot hatches. Honda brought a lot of refinement and a lot of sophistication to their entry into the hot hatch derby, and it became one of the cars, if not the car, that really sort of defined the hot hatch era for a lot of people. When they went to the next generation, 1989 Civic Si came out, the second generation CRX, the fourth generation Civic. Another level of sophistication, double A-arm suspension, fantastic. It's a car that still dominates SCCA street touring autocross even to this day. Even 30 years later, it's a car still performing amazingly well in various motorsports venues. So current generation of the Si changes things up a bit. This is the very first turbocharged Civic Si out of the factory. Previous generation Civic Si was a 2.4 liter naturally aspirated VTEC motor. This is a 1.5 liter turbocharged motor producing 205 horsepower, 192 pounds of torque. So it's about 100 horsepower off of, 101 horsepower actually, off of the Civic Type R, but it's also a couple hundred pounds lighter than the Civic Type R. And best news of all, it is considerably less expensive than the Civic Type R. Very few options available on these cars. This car, as it sits, which is nicely loaded, heated seats and a nice Apple CarPlay touchscreen entertainment system, under $25,000 on the sticker for this car. A lot of car for the money. So. We already have Datsun guys tuning in to bust our humps here. So let's start by taking a look under the hood here, if I can figure out how to open this thing. And we'll show you guys a few things under here. So, like every Honda that we've ever seen, everything is nicely packaged. Everything is nicely laid out. But for the first time in Civic Si history, we have this assembly up here, which is a turbocharger putting out just right around the 14 psi mark at maximum boost. 1.5 liters, so it's direct injected. Red line's at 6,600 RPM. If I've got a few nits to pick about this car, it's that I think the red line is a little bit too low. It actually, is there a bug in my hair? What is going on with this? All right, there was a bug in my hair, folks. How was that? It's that the red line is maybe a little bit too low. If you rev the thing out to the red line, it really does still feel like it's making power all the way until it really smacks that rev limiter, and it makes the 1-2 shift a little bit. When you get into second gear, you actually come off the power band a little bit, because I would like to see it another 200 RPM in first gear, I think would help that 1-2 shift quite a bit. So okay, so Jason wants to know. Oh, Jason wants to know about the traction stuff. Yeah. Okay. So we'll actually get to that in a minute. There's a few different drive modes in the car, sport modes, traction control and stability control, and there's a little bit of a convoluted system for actually turning all of the traction control modes off. There is a way to do it. I hope I remember it because I went through it. It's basically the Konami code. You not only get the traction control turned off, but you get like an extra guy on Defender by hitting all these buttons in different orders. So we're going to show you that in just a couple of minutes. We're also going to get underneath the car here pretty soon and show you a few things under there. Before we do that though, I want to look at the strut tops because one of the things about new cars in general, the handling on the car is very solid. It's a very composed car, very easy car to drive, but most newer cars are going to be camber limited, and what I mean by that is they're going to come out of the factory with either those front wheels and the fasteners, then you should be able to get. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, so we got a nice little bit. I mean, not a huge amount, but there's actually a nice little bit of area there where once you remove this locating pin right here, you'll be able to tilt that strut back and forth a little bit and gain a little bit of negative camber from this connection right here by leaning that whole strut top in there. Not sure how much. I'm guessing, you've only got about 3/32 of an inch there, so you may be going to be able to pick up another degree and a quarter maybe. But if you're starting with nothing, anything is better than that. So that's a good sign actually. I'm pleased with that. So that kind of tells me that yeah, you're going to be able to align this thing. So Grant says there is if you pull the pin, does the pin just come out, or we'll figure it out. So we're not gonna take the thing completely apart. All right, let's take a look inside the car and let's go over how to turn off the traction control. So here we'll turn. Let me let Chris get a nice shot of the interior there quick before I plop myself down in there. Really, really nice interior on this thing. We'll talk a little bit about this when we do some driving impressions in a little bit here, but it's really kind of a throwback to a time when there was a lot more space inside of a car. So here we are inside the car. Everybody wants to know, how do we turn the traction control off on a 2017 Civic Si? Let me see if I can remember how to do it, because it is fairly complicated, but ultimately it is doable. Okay, car is running and the parking brake is off. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put our foot on the brake. This is the traction control button over here. So with our foot on the brake, we're going to cycle it off. We're going to cycle it back on. We're going to remove our foot from the brake. Now we're going to set the parking brake. Now we're going to do the operation again. We're going to cycle it off. We're going to cycle it back on. Now, with the parking brake still on, we're going to put our foot back on the foot brake. We're going to cycle it off. When we cycle it back on this time, everything is off. Chris, can you get a shot of this little guy flashing over here? So that is showing us that everything at this point is off. The traction control, the stability control has all been switched off at this point. So let's do that one more time, a little bit quicker, because I actually am very proud of myself for remembering it. So you start with parking brake off, traction control basically in the default position when you start the car. Foot on the brake, turn it off, turn it back on. Foot off the brake, parking brake on, repeat the cycle. Turn it off, turn it back on, leave the parking brake on, foot back on the brake, turn it off. When you hit it again, boom, everything's off. Look at that! Oh my God! It's basically the Konami code applied to a car. So you get your traction control off, and you get like 2 free dudes. So, all right. So let's before we go to driving impressions, let us take a look. A couple other spots in the car. Chris, pop in there and get a shot of the back seat. Real roomy back seat for a 2-door. And we'll take a look in the trunk. Big trunk. Let me grab the light again, Chris. Big trunk, and one thing I definitely like about it is big trunk opening. And you know, I'm a fan of hatchbacks. I'm a hatchback guy, but for a car that's not a hatchback, for a trunk car, that's about as big of an opening as you're going to see in a modern automobile. Like if you've ever looked at the trunk in a Camaro. Camaro's got a real big trunk, but it has an opening that you can basically fit, like you can fit a Wendy's single through there. Forget about fitting a Wendy's double through there. But this is something that you could actually, when you put that pass-through down, looks like 70-30 split seats, and nice big pass-through. The pass-through is not quite as big as the whole trunk opening, so. But you could get a set of wheels and tires between the tops of the back seats, and in here you could get a whole set of wheels and tires in there pretty easily. All right, Pete wants to know how the front seats are. I am a big fan. We're actually going to talk about that in our driving impressions a little bit, but I'm a big fan of the front seats. So actually, let's go to our driving impressions next, and while we're there, we'll throw the thing up on the lift. So we're going to do something we've never done before, and hopefully it works. We're going to go live via satellite to our special correspondent for driving impressions, if this works. So I'm going to move me down here, and all right. So this is something that we're kind of playing around with our broadcast software. We're pretty sure we did some tests with this. We're pretty sure we can pull this off tonight. I hope you enjoy it. So now live via satellite to give us some driving impressions on the car in real time is going to be me, and we'll see if we can get me up here. All right, there I am. Oh my God, look at that. Hey, JG, hello.
Yep, I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay, well, you're driving the Civic Si, right?
Yeah, we're driving the Civic Si today. It's literally sitting right behind you. That's what the show's about.
No, how are you there, but the car is here, but I'm talking to you, and it's day, but it's night here? How does that work?
I don't know, dude. Wormholes? Look, can we just do the thing, please?
All right, just do the thing.
All right, cool. Folks, welcome to the cockpit of the 2017 Honda Civic Si. It's a very, very impressive place to be. I am a former owner of a 1990 Honda CRX Si. And I have to say that this current iteration of the Civic Si is the closest thing I've driven to a throwback vehicle that Honda has made, I think, in many generations. We're going to throw it in gear. We're going to go for a little drive here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the driving experience behind the wheel of the current generation Civic Si. Now look, I know the Civic Type R gets all the glory, all the hype right now, but the Civic Si is not to be overlooked. The driving experience is really, really fantastic. The first thing you notice behind the wheel of this thing is how composed it is and how good the sight lines are. One of the things I used to love about my old Hondas back in the 80s, back in the 90s, my wife had an 88 Civic, I had a 90 CRX. One of the things I loved about those were the sight lines were fantastic. You had this great visibility out the front. You had these excellent sort of door sills that sat seemingly lower. You had this great greenhouse. You could see in 360 degrees. You had great visibility at it. They were very airy feeling inside. Modern safety standards, unfortunately, have done away with a lot of that feeling with modern cars. Belt lines are getting higher because of side impact crash protection. A-pillars are getting thicker because of airbags. They're now located in the A-pillars. But somehow Honda has managed with this current Civic to really sort of roll back the clock a little bit and build a very airy, very open feeling interior, and I really, really like that. It's very comfortable. It feels very natural. The fit of it, the way it fits to your body feels very natural. Ergonomically, it's laid out very, very well. The wheel, the shifter, the pedals, everything is in a really nice relationship to each other, and the individual controls themselves feel absolutely fantastic. I don't know how well that you can hear something is quiet, but hopefully there is a lack of boominess coming through, and just sort of a nice little bit of a hum from the tires, not intrusive, just enough to let you know they're there, and a little bit of a purr from the exhaust, enough to let you know that this is kind of a sporty car. Really, really responsive, really, really flexible, and while not Civic Type R fast, quick and fast in its own right. This now, and it's got by hitting a button right down here, firms the shocks up a little bit, and what I like almost as much as that is it changes the throttle mapping a little bit to give you a little more aggression from the throttle. For each input of the throttle, you get a little bit more of a linear response from the throttle, rather than what, when you go back to the normal mode, feels like a little bit of a lazy response from the throttle. Everything feels like it's of very high quality. The shifter is a little bit light. If I'm going to nitpick some stuff, I'm going to nitpick the shifter a little bit, because the shifter is a little bit light and small. I'd like a little bit more sort of firmness and resistance from the shifter. It feels like a little bit more of a delicate instrument than I think it probably actually is, but maybe that's just because I'm used to driving a Mustang that has this giant, beefy, sort of overly resistant shifter. Make a little U-turn here because I'm getting lost. Real nice turning circle on this car. Actually, I just made a U-turn in about 2.5 lanes, just on next to a side street there. Once we get some room here, I'm going to run this thing out a little bit, and you're going to get a little bit of a taste of the performance. But just the usability of it, I think, is what impresses me the most, just from the hour or two so far that I've spent with this car. The car takes to you very, very naturally. You take to the car very naturally. You spend an hour in it, and it feels like a car that you've driven for years. It just becomes this very, very familiar place. And I think that's a testament to how well engineered it is, and just what a good job Honda has done at making the interior of this car a usable, livable place. Like I said, it's very much a throwback to the old Civics I used to own, in that it's very airy, but there's also a lot of utility in here. There's cubby holes everywhere. There's a very, very deep center console that has not only cup holders, but it has a stacked cup holder in here that you can actually literally put a 2-liter bottle in here should you ever be that thirsty. You could just keep drinking and drinking far longer than you could possibly hold it all in. But there's actually a regular cup holder in here as well. There's just a lot of neat little utility functions that are all sort of very intuitively laid out. They're all sort of in these natural places that you want things to be, and everything kind of makes sense as to where it is. Well, I nitpicked the shifter a little bit. I got nothing at all bad to say about the other controls. The wheels, the pedal, everything seems to be placed exactly where it needs to be. The wheel is leather wrapped, has great thumb rests. It's got a great feel to it. It's nice and thick, but not overly thick where it gives you where it feels like it's trying to be something that it's not, but it's sort of just thick enough to give you a really, really good feel in your hands. And the thumb notches fall right into place where they need to be. The seats are fantastic. The seats are again, just enough of what they need to be and no extra of what they don't need to be. They're bolstered, but they're not overly bolstered. They're not so deep that it makes the car difficult or tricky to get into or get out of. Let me see if I can block the sun there for you guys. But so you can get into and out of the car easily, but you still have support in every direction. In braking and accelerating and cornering, you have nice support. You have a nice sort of bucketed feel, which really makes you feel like part of the car, but you're not buried in it like a race seat, and it's not impossible to get into the way like a Ford Focus ST or a Ford Focus RS. Great seats in those cars, but they're almost so good that it makes the car difficult to get into and get out of. And I think it's a strike against an otherwise fantastic car. Also, the relationship of the seat to the floor is fantastic as well. Another thing that a lot of drivers don't like about the Ford products, the Focus RS, the Focus ST, is that the seats, again, great seats, but very high off the floor, and makes the wheel pedal shifter relationship a little bit strange for some folks. Wheel pedal shifters in this thing really, really right where they need to be. The seat adjusts for height very, very easily, so it's very easy to put yourself into a driving position right where you want to be. And again, the shifter is a little bit light, but it's not. It's very positive at the same time. It goes right where you put it. I haven't missed a gear yet. It's very, very natural to move it 1, 2, 2, 3, even going across gates like from 4 to 5 or 2 to 3, or downshifting 5 to 4 or 3 to 2. This is a car that you could easily get out on track with, even if it wasn't something you were power shifting all the time. You could get out on track and not really be afraid of making those cross gate shifts the way you would be in some other cars, because the shifter really, really seems to go where you want it to go every single time. Chassis wise, really, really, really impressive. The car at simultaneous times does this fantastic job of feeling both smaller and larger than it actually is. It feels smaller in a way that cars just don't anymore, in that you have a really, really great sense of where all 4 corners of the car are at any given time. Like I think this would be a really, really fun and really, really capable autocross car, especially for a novice, because you have a great sense of where each corner of the car is while you're steering. And just the driver's position in the car, you get this great sense of the car changing direction around you while you're making steering inputs, and you really sort of intuitively know where the corners of the car are. I like that about a car. It feels bigger in that the car feels very sort of planted to the road. It doesn't make a lot of additional motions, a lot of additional vertical motions that smaller cars can tend to make. You know, it doesn't feel like it's unnecessarily, you know, heavy or full of mass. Just feels very, very well engineered, very planted, and very capable. In short, it feels like a driver's car. I think this is a car that compares favorably to something like a BMW or a Volkswagen GTI that has this reputation for really being sort of wired into the driver's central nervous system, and being a very, very responsive car. So we have a little bit of clear road here. I'm going to accelerate the car a little bit and let you see how it launches from a stop. It does have kind of a neat feature. It has kind of a, you know, neutral rev limiter that holds the revs at about 4,500 RPM in neutral, and lets you get some really, really crisp launches. But let's just do a quick, you know, 1-2 sprint here. I'll kind of show you how it goes. So I can just put my foot to the floor, bring it up to about 4,500, and then come off the clutch. Now it does need 3 gears to get to 60 miles an hour. If there were another strike against it, and there are very few, but if there were another strike against it as an autocross car, it would be that second gear only runs to about 56 miles an hour at the rev limiter. Now, it really does feel like the car is still making power on the rev limiter. I think the red line and the rev limiter hits at about 6,500 RPM. I really just the feel of the car really gives you the impression that it could easily rev to or even beyond 7,000 RPM and still be making power. And one of the things you notice when you do a hard acceleration like that is when the car sort of finally hooks up, it hooks up, it comes out of the hole really, really hard, but then it hooks up right at about 6,000 RPM. You have to shift immediately because you're right on that rev limiter, and when you make that 1-2 rev limiter 6,500 RPM shift, it drops down a little bit below 4,000 RPM, and it's a little bit out of the power curve when you make that 1-2 shift. So I think a little bit closer, another 500 RPM, you would be fine. So I'd love to see a little more rev out of the thing, but you know, if that's what Honda wants, that's how it is. Maybe the aftermarket will allow a slightly higher rev, and I think that would be fantastic for the thing. The gears are nicely spaced ultimately, but I think if you were allowed to use a little bit more power band, they'd be the spacing of the gears would not really be an issue the way it is now, where when you make that 1-2 shift, it does come off the power a little bit. All right, those are our driving impressions. I'm going to send it back to me in the studio, and we will talk about a few more technical details of the car. So thanks very much. We'll see you again.
And we're back. I think I get to say that, right? Yeah, why not? Let me recycle this. So thanks to me for checking in, and let me make sure we still have a show going on here. We do. All right, so now folks, we can see the car is up in the air. Again, if anybody has any questions, any comments about the Civic Si while we're doing this, I have lost my comment stream here, but we will get it back for you momentarily here, and be able to respond to questions. We'll just let that, we're going to set that down and let that cook for a minute. So let's talk a little bit before we get digging into the underguts and the tender, soft, and metallic bits of the Civic Si about the folks that support this show. I'm talking about folks like CRC Industries. You can check them out at crcindustries.com. You can check out their 15,000 products, many of which you're probably already familiar with. Stuff like brake clean, stuff like CRC's carb cleaner or their fuel injection cleaner, or the stuff that we love that we've just discovered recently, their display cleaner. We use this to clean all the lenses of our cameras, all the displays on our computer screens over here. It's a great dash cleaner for modern automotive dashes. Evaporates very quickly, works great, streak-free, smudge-free, great stuff. And not only are you getting a fine product when you use CRC stuff, not only are you getting a product that you know is going to work, that you know is going to be the same no matter whether you buy it in San Diego, California, or Buffalo, New York, or Salina, Kansas. You are getting a product from a company that gives back to the stuff we love doing. CRC is a company that supports amateur and professional motorsports at every level. We are proud to have them on board. We're going to be proud next week to have them be a supporter of our $2017 challenge in Gainesville. We've worked with them for many years, and we're proud to have them sticking around. So yeah, you know, would it kill you to go out this week and buy some stuff from CRC? No, it wouldn't. And even if you don't need anything from CRC, hey, send them a note. You know, tell them you appreciate what they're doing for us and what they're doing for you as an enthusiast. Also, Chris, walk with me and let's check out the Autobooks-Aerobooks bookshelf up here. Let's speaking of Hondas, how about a Honda CBR shop manual? That's right. We are former owners of a Honda CBR 600 F2. Missed that bike a lot. It was a lot of fun. But these Haynes manuals, an entire collection of Haynes manuals on every Honda you can possibly imagine, available from Autobooks-Aerobooks. It's not just history stuff, not just photography stuff. Great manuals like this too. We're going to throw up a link to all of their Honda manuals there in a second. So just like this 2017 Civic, you can get Haynes manuals for almost every generation of Civic and almost every other Haynes manual ever published there at autobooks-aerobooks.com. You can also check out their calendar. They are not only a fantastic bookstore, fantastic place to go buy books that you can look at and read and enjoy and learn, but they are a place where you can go and get tuned in to the Southern California automotive community. They've got a great calendar of stuff that goes on every day, every week out there in Southern California. Cruise-ins, cars and coffees, different fun events there. So if you're out in Southern California, you want to check out cool car stuff, autobooks-aerobooks.com. They got a great calendar of stuff going on. All right, let us take a look here under the underneath the Civic Si. Oh, okay, we're back here. We'll get this comment stream up. For whatever reason, I lost the comment stream. There we go. We're back. All right. Yeah, Pete says CRC rocks. Yes, CRC does indeed rock. And Dean purchased a couple of cans of CRC stuff for a brake job. We are very, very pleased that you did that. Yeah, we really appreciate that, and thanks for all the likes and shares we're getting tonight. And when we have, excuse me, when we have this many people on, I know that we've got a lot of new folks. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing tonight, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and throw us a subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and throw us a like, throw us a share. Doesn't cost you anything, and we really appreciate it. All right, let's take a look underneath this thing and see what we can see. So I actually haven't even checked wheel and tire size yet. This is the summer tire package. It's actually one of the only options you can get on the thing is summer tires or all season tires, and these are 235. 40/18, so comes on a set of 18. So they're actually, if you're running in like a solo street class, you're going to be able to find good rubber for it. There's going to be Bridgestone and BFG rubber available for it. right on those 18s, so no problem there. The dog will get that. So Ed wants to know what the best CRC product for potato gun fuel is. Well, that's a good question. I'm going to say probably the carb cleaner or the fuel injection cleaner, because you want something like the brake clean burns, but it doesn't burn fast enough, and I think it doesn't expand quite enough when it burns. You want something that's going to give you a lot of expansion during that burn. So I'm going to say probably the carb cleaner. All right, so let's take a look what we got under here, just taking a cursory look at it. So the Civic Type R, as y'all probably know, is a double ball joint arrangement. It's got, the best way to describe a double ball joint setup is it's sort of a hybrid between A-arms and a strut suspension. This is a more traditional strut front suspension, but it uses, I mean, there's a really big beefy hub out here. You'll be able to see that a little bit better when we get the car up a little bit higher. But everything fairly straightforward up here. Sway bar that mounts to the strut housing here. Coil springs over these electronically controlled shocks. This is going to be the actuator for when you put the car in sport mode. As we mentioned on the driving impressions, there is a sport mode. It trims the throttle a little bit, gives you a little bit more aggressive throttle curve, stiffens the shocks up a little bit, and stiffens the steering up a little bit, and actually provides really nice feel and feedback in the steering. Okay, disc brakes, calipers mounted on the leading edge of the rotors. Let's put it up in the air a little bit higher, guys, so we can get under the car, and we'll check out these knuckles a little bit. Tom. Look. Go ahead and go all the way up. Keep going. That's good. If we go all the way up, that way Chris can get underneath here too. D wants to know how big the rotors are. We can measure them in a second, but actually Ed can probably look it up before we even measure. So Ed, check front rotor size on there when you get a chance. Okay, so let's hunt for a little more negative camber up here. So we already saw that we could get a little bit up at the top of the strut mount. If we look at how these knuckles are designed, it's basically a knuckle integral with the strut housing. So there's the hub carrier and the knuckle bolts directly to the strut housing. There's no adjustment available there, the way there is on like say a Toyota or something, where you've actually got a separate knuckle that bolts on a couple of tabs to the strut. So no more camber available there. The ball joint down here, I'm guessing that probably, well, we can take one of those off and see if you can cheat those out. Let me see what size. Hey Tom, grab me a 17 bottom drawer in the black thing, 17 mil. Thank you. Ooh, I guess right. Okay, so those ball joint bolts are not slotted, but there, I mean, there's, you know, a 32nd of an inch of clearance there, so you could maybe loosen all of those and push that ball joint out just a little bit, but you're not going to really get any more camber there. All right, Pete wants to know where the oil filter is. Good question. Let's see if we can spot it here. I'm guessing it's going to be behind an access panel, but we should at least be able to spot the yeah, I don't know. I'm going to guess you probably have to take this access panel off. It looks like you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 9 fasteners holding this this under engine panel on. And once that comes off, you're going to basically have the entire engine under things exposed. So if it's anywhere easy to find there, I mean, once that comes off, you should have good access to everything. Yeah, so Danny says the filter is under this aluminum panel here. And again, we got these big access screws here. I mean, it's all fairly easily marked for how to get that off. Actually, we can yank that off real quick. I'm thinking those are probably like quarter turn fasteners. Get an even better look at what we're dealing with under here. Oh yeah, those are just nice little quarter turn plugs that are not captive, I'm finding out. Oh, stupid tire. All right, there you go. All right, so it's right there. So, if our friend Kathy from Honda is watching, we are going to put your car back to together, or we'll at least put all the stuff in the trunk, let you guys put it back together. All right, so let's take a look at what we got under here. So oil filter is easy to access. No real functional cooling going to the brakes or anything, but you do have a fairly wide open mag wheel going to the brakes. Traditional sort of modern front wheel drive dog bone between the engine and the chassis. Somebody asked about oil change intervals, and yeah, man, modern oil change intervals just freak me out. I mean, maybe I'm just old school, but I still change my oil like every 3,000-4,000 miles. I don't know if, there's no way I could ever let a car go 10,000 miles. It just feels weird. It just doesn't feel healthy to me. Okay, so let's take a look at the exhaust. Really nice, fairly large diameter exhaust, like almost about a 2 3/4 inch diameter exhaust, going into a little resonator right here, and coming out the back of there and splitting into this fairly complicated dual silencer system. All nice stainless. I can't imagine it's terribly heavy. Now on the Type R has like sort of another intermediate stinger pipe in the middle where it splits and then they sort of join in the middle, and there's 3 exhaust outlets, and it looks a little weird. It's like following behind somebody on a Ski-Doo, with a big triple in it, but it's pretty traditional, one into 2 mufflers, and then 2 mufflers back out into this single sort of Cylon Raider looking exhaust tip. If you're building an autocross car out of one of these, there's probably going to be some weight savings available by eliminating one of these mufflers, and I don't really see any electronics going to the muffler, so I think they're just fairly conventional mufflers. But yeah, you're going to be able to eliminate one of these for sure, because you're going to be able to go from the catalytic converter back, and yeah, you're going to be able to put a heck of a nice and a heck of a light exhaust on this thing. Okay, take a look at the rear suspension here. So trailing arms with lower arm, conventional shock and spring on the arm. See if we got some camber adjustment available back here that's obvious. Yeah, we do actually. So we got some nice adjustment cams on these lower control arms that Honda has provided, that will be able to push these push the bottoms of the rear knuckles in and out, and get quite a nice bit of camber in the back of these things. So I know we got a couple folks out there who are watching tonight that actually have Type R's, and I believe the rear suspension is nearly identical, construction-wise anyway. So maybe Danny Kao can let us know how much camber he can get out of the back of his car. And I know I want to say it's at least a couple degrees that he was able camber-wise able to get out of the rear of his car. So yeah, definitely some camber available in the rear of these, which is cool. So if you can get 1.5 degrees up front, and then you can get you can kind of tune with the back, you could make a really nice little autocross car out of one of these. I think the only thing that is going to be a limiting factor for these cars, autocross wise, at least in a street class, is going to be the gearing. And I don't know how the rest of the cars that run in the same class are geared. You'd be talking about stuff like the Fiesta ST and the Mini, but second gear you're only getting 56, maybe 57 miles an hour at the rev limiter, and the rev limiter is fairly abrupt. It's not some place where you want to spend a lot of time, because it does upset the car a little bit. So you may have to get into a situation where you're making a 2-3 shift occasionally. Real slick transmission for going 2-3 and going back down 3-2. But I think if there's going to be any sort of limiting factors, it's going to be that that speed. Okay, so yeah, Danny Ko says able to get 1.8 negative in the rear, 1.5 in the front. And that sounds about right. And Steve Ibanez was able to get half a degree of negative in the front with the pins pulled. Yeah, like you said, the Type R has a substantially different front suspension than the SI. But even with those pins out of the top, you're going to be able to get a little bit, and you're going to want to take every bit you can get. I mean, if I was going to start setting the car up, pull those pins out, lean the struts back, get out all the slop you possibly can down here. I mean, there's not going to be a ton available down here. You may have a little bit of slop here. I mean, probably not, but you'd be wise to loosen this and put some tension on it and tighten it back up. When you're putting a car like this together for street class, you got to basically loosen everything, push the wheels as far as you can get them to the negative camber you want, then tighten everything back up. And if you get 1/10 of a degree from 5 different places, well, there's half a degree for you. Dean wants to know, is it a fuel cut or a spark interrupt rev limiter? I don't know the specific answer to that. I know it feels basically like it is doing both and doing both aggressively. It's more of a spark interrupt where so it bounce it. Before I forget the thing, and Danny's posting caster and camber numbers on the SI. So yeah, thanks very much.